Now, I have been speaking to a man called Richards who got in touch with me to talk about losing his religion. Now, he'd been a Jehovah's Witness from a very early age, but he left after he disagreed with their view on a specific issue. Now, he'd been married to another Jehovah's Witness. They'd had a daughter together, but after their marriage broke down, Richard claims that his daughter continued to be swayed by his former partner's family, who were also Jehovah's Witnesses. Richard said that he first lost his faith after watching a BBC Panorama documentary.
The child abuse policy within Jehovah's Witnesses, and I've got it printed here, their actual policy, which can I show you that?
Put it in your own words.
If a child goes to the elders of the congregation and they say that this guy has sexually abused them, first the elders will try and arrange a meeting with the accused and with the victim together. It says that accusation involves child sex abuse and the victim is currently a minor. The elders should contact the branch office before arranging a meeting with the child and the alleged abuser. Now, the branch office is the legal departments of Jehovah's Witnesses. This is not involving the police. This is what they do before. It says, if the accuser or the accused is unwilling to meet with the elders, or if the accused continues to deny the accusation of a single witness, so it's just one person that's reported them, and the wrongdoing is not established, the elders will leave matters in Jehovah's hands.
Meaning?
They won't do anything about it.
So it's just left?
Left.
And the child then has to carry on suffering this if it's going on?
Yeah. Unless there's two people who have said that if somebody else come forward and said the same person had done that to them, then obviously they would have to look at it differently. But if there's just one person that makes an allegation like that, and according to the handbook, it says that they would determine whether to take action, not just on these situations, but on the victim's state of mind and their involvement with the witnesses. Are they spiritually strong? I.e., are they going on the ministry? Are they at all the meetings? Are they mentally stable? They take all this into account before they would actually do anything.
And if they did do anything, would it still be kept inside the group, so to speak? Would outside sources be brought in? Would they contact the police? Would they contact social workers if needed be? Would they do that?
They have to ring their legal desk first at the headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses to find out whether they need to go to the police or not. If the legal desk say, no, leave it, deal with it in-house, then that's what they do. There was a story the other day about a gentleman. He went to the elders with a confession and he's got a 13-year jail sentence for sexual assault. And he had gone to the elders and confessed that he'd actually done these things years before, and the elders, when it all came out with the, eventually the victim went to the police become involved. The elders refused to reveal to the police what he'd actually told them because they said that the confession was confidential, and a judge has had to order them to come to court to actually give evidence because they've been, reluctant to do so. In order
so they were even at that stage, they're protecting him, still protecting him.
Still protecting him.
Now, sitting here talking to you about this, I can see that you're visibly, you are shaking, you are, obviously this is something that is still, you're going through. What really bothers you about this? What is the one thing or the things that are really bothering you about this? Because I get the feeling that there is just something more. Is it something, have you witnessed something? Is something gone on?
I just think when you've been brought up in something and you've been in a religion for 20 years, and I grew up believing that it was the truth, that it was the right way of life, and slowly but surely, as I got into my 20s, I started looking a lot online. I saw, obviously, this Panorama episode, all these allegations of child abuse and convictions. The thing that was done to me, when I actually separated with my wife and I spoke to one of her family members, and I was told that my marriage hadn't worked because I hadn't put Jehovah first in my marriage, and that's why it hadn't worked, and that this was what I deserved for for not sticking in the truth in the organisation, and that this is basically why my daughter now has been separated from me. But I feel very strongly about the child abuse situation. The policy has got no place in society, that they require two people, and if need be, they don't want, you see, any disrepute being brought on the religion's name by going to the police, going to newspapers, by exposing this. And there is a huge ex-JW community of different experiences, and I've met so many really good people online that I've spoken to, shared experiences with, and I find that it's a worldwide problem. It's basically, my experiences are the same as somebody else's, only the names are different. Seeing people who have got family members who are elders, their children would get away with things more than what, say, a single parent and her children would get away with. They would often be pulled in front of elders or disfellowshipped, or, you know, whereas children whose parents were elders or they've got a position in that organisation, often things would be swept under the carpet. That is how I see it. And the child abuse situation, it makes me feel ill that I was even part of it. And you can see from me that I feel really strongly about it.
Yeah.
And a policy that requires two people to come forward, or for somebody to have actually witnessed what's happened to a child before, you know, they'll even go to the authorities. There's nothing in this Elders Handbook and in this policy that mentions going to the police at all. If it can be dealt with in-house, it's dealt with in-house. And even if a Jehovah's Witness is convicted of child sex abuse and he's locked up, when he's released from prison, if he wants to go back to the meetings, the same congregation where he's committed this offence,
even with that child,
yeah, he's allowed to go back there by the congregation and by the elders.
What, just accepted as back to normal, business as usual?
Yeah. Obviously, they often now, when they're convicted, they will be disfellowshipped. But as I explained earlier about the situation with adultery, you go to the meetings for 12 months, nobody will speak to you, but eventually the elders will come, have a meeting with you, say to you, you know, you've done really well, you've been at the meetings for 12 months, you know, you've stuck at it, we'd like to reinstate you back into the congregation. And this is the problem. This is where you've got, if that child molester has been released from prison and put back into a congregation, he could be knocking at the front door and you're totally unaware of that. You haven't got a clue. You just think it's a Jehovah's Witness, nice, friendly guy. He could be using the opportunity to get into your home, to do a Bible study with your children. And obviously, it's hard to get your head around exactly what goes on.
I mean, of course, if we're broadening it out, it could be any person coming to the door, could be a potential child molester. I mean, you just don't know. But from what you've said and what you've described, then I do see where your concerns lie. How often are you asked to... Do you have to go out every week? I know that you said there's a certain amount of hours. So they do no checks on anybody that goes out. It's anybody that is a Jehovah's Witness that's, far enough up in the pecking order? Because there are kids that come out too, aren't there?
Yeah.
We had some come the other week and there just seemed to be like very elderly ones down to children almost at some point at the door. Is there not an age limit on this?
No. If your parents go out knocking doors, then obviously you go with them. That is as simple as it is. They do have report cards at the end of the month that you're expected to fill in, honestly, with your hours. I mean, to be honest, I would put down what I'd done, and if obviously it falls below a certain average, they would expect you to do at least 10 hours a month. If you're doing 4 hours a month, the chances are the elders would say, I've had your report card, you've done 4 hours a month, can I ask why that is? You know, and you'd be quizzed over that to find out that you should be doing more, or that they'd come and visit you, or they'd say, well, I'll come out with you on the ministry, we'll make an arrangement that every week we'll go out for 2-3 hours. Whether you like that or not, that is the position you're put in. You know, you've got, obviously some people are very...
anti.
Yeah. And, you know, I've known of Jehovah's Witnesses who have been beaten up before, and, you know, and I think if you're taking your children to a house Or even a woman on her own going to a house, you know, anything could happen. You don't know who's behind that front door, as you don't know who's at the front door.
No, you could find somebody that's equally, against Jehovah's Witnesses as they are for it, or people from other religions, or just anybody. You don't know whose door you're knocking on, do you? What was the reaction like when you did knock at people's doors? I mean, were the majority of people quite friendly?
Not interested. That's all you would get most of the time. The other thing, if you come across other religious people while you were doing the door knocking, they would say, yeah, I'll take your magazines as long as you take one of mine. That's what we were told. Never take anything from anybody at the door. If they try and strike a deal with you like that, then to walk away from the door, because you could be picking up apostate literature. Which leads me on to the next point, that in the Watchtower magazine, a column in there, and they'd said in the column that people who leave the faith and do, for instance, Caroline, what I'm doing now, are mentally diseased. It was basically put in a way that if a doctor tells you to stay away from, somebody because they're infected, that's what you need to do. And we view apostates as mentally diseased people who, spread lies and spread falsehoods to obviously bring our religion down and to drag faithful members of the organisation out with them. That is how they would look at me now. They would look at me as being somebody who would quite happily drag other people out with myself to where I am now. I'm not interested in dragging anybody out. I'm more interested in giving support to people who've been through the same things, or putting them in touch with people who, if they've been victims of sexual abuse, they've got nobody to turn to. They may be in the organisation, don't want to be, but they don't want to leave because they're going to lose their family, they're going to lose all their friends, they're going to be isolated. This has happened before. People have ended up committing suicide because they've been cut off from the organisation and from their family. They've been left with nobody because of one mistake. I put 20 years into being a witness from the age of 6. All that now counts for nothing, because I'm viewed as mentally diseased because I don't agree with it anymore, and that I can see the flaws in it.
What is your final message to people on this?
I think that when Jehovah's Witnesses come knocking at the door, it's worth asking them about their child abuse policy. And I would urge anybody that's in that position, everyone's got the internet today. Everybody can look online, and it's worth looking online to find out about Jehovah's Witnesses. You will bring up so much information that you can ask the questions. All I would say to people, Caroline, is to be informed and have a clear. Don't just look at them as coming to the door. Their aim of coming to the door is to convert you and to drag you into this world where you've got no control over your life. Now, if you leave, you're isolated. You lose your family. You lose your friends. I would just look at it. If there's any Jehovah's Witnesses out there that are listening to this, who are in a position where they don't want to be in it anymore, or they've been sexually abused as a child or even as an adult, and they've got nobody to talk to about it, you've got my telephone number, and I can put them in touch with the right people who can help them.
Listen, Richard, thank you very much for coming in and chatting about this. Of course, there is going to be a certain sector of people that will be entirely against what you've said. They'll come on, they'll have their say. Yeah. And, of course, we welcome calls on, on either. Not that we're taking sides. We've heard your story. We've heard what you've got to say. Yeah. And it's taken a lot for you to come in and talk about it. I can see that in you. Yeah. But thank you very much for coming in, and thank you very much for doing it, Richard.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, that was obviously Richard's personal point of view. Following on from the BBC Panorama documentary, Richard mentioned the BBC had this to say. Now, the Jehovah's Witnesses deal with child abuse according to principles that they interpret from the Bible. They stress the need to abhor what is wicked. The Jehovah's Witnesses do not, in any of their policy letters sent from the headquarters to the elders of each congregation in the world, tell the elders to to report immediately any allegation of child abuse to the police or other authorities who are trained to investigate such claims unless they are required to do so by law. They are, however, required to report the matter to the Bethel Legal Department of the Jehovah's Witnesses headquarters in that country. The local elders themselves must carry out an investigation interviewing the victims and the alleged abuser. As well as making a report to the branch office, the elders may be required by law to report even uncorroborated or unsubstantiated allegations to the authorities. In this case, they are expected to comply. Additionally, the Jehovah's Witness publicity information states that the victim may wish to report the matter to the authorities, and it is his or her absolute right to do so. So listen, thank you very much, Richard, for coming and telling your story to me. And I know it did take a lot out of him. There are people that are for what Richard has had to say. Okay, people in complete agreement. There are people that are against what he has to say as well, or they just want to put their point of view across. It's open for you all to come on and have a chat with me. 08453 009956. That's 08453 009956. And you can text me 81333, starting your text with WM. Be good to talk to you this afternoon. You can hear that interview in full. If you missed bits of it, if you want to listen to it again, you can listen to it in full. It's going to be available a bit later on the website. That's bbc.co.uk/WM. That's bbc.co.uk/WM. You can go back, listen to the show again and hear Richard's story. Now, I want to talk to Gordon, who's called up from Sutton Coldfield. Hi, Gordon.
Hello there, Carol.
Hello, Gordon. Right, thank you for calling through this afternoon. Obviously, this is as a reaction to what Richard had to say.
Yes, I'm not a witness. I'm an elderly gentleman, and part of my family are witnesses. And in response to Richard, who's just been talking, I do know quite a lot about what witnesses do and what they are and what they mean by what they preach. A witness is someone who preaches exactly what it says in the Bible. And in the Bible, and then Jesus Christ says, go out to the people and preach the new word. This is what they do. They do what the Bible says and what Jesus told them to do, which was to go out and preach the word. Now, Richard appears to me to be very bitter on certain things regarding his family and the breakup of his family, and it looks to me as though he's lashing out, because a lot of things of what he said with regards to what the witnesses do are just not coherent with what I know of witnesses. Many people have got witnesses who live next door, and he says they do not get involved with the public, which is total nonsense, because they do. He says it's a closed shop with witnesses. That's not true. He says that they abuse children. That's not true. He says they keep it to themselves. That's not true. If anything like that did take place, the police are called immediately. That's a fact. So a lot of things of what Richard said appears to me to be he's lashing out, and the witnesses are the ones that he's going to use as a punch ball. As I repeat, I am not a witness, but I do know a lot of witnesses who are very, very nice people, good people, and a lot of the things that he attributes to them, to my knowledge, is totally false.
I guess
I'd like to have been there face to face with Richard to talk to him and ask him, if you do something wrong as a witness, he's saying, you're persecuted. You are not. You are disfellowshipped. You are chucked out because you are doing something wrong, bad. And a lot of people who are turned away, disfellowshipped because they've done something bad, then react against what they feel is something there that's going against what they did, and they don't believe that they were at fault. So Richard is coming across as, I am faultless. I do nothing wrong. The witnesses do all the wrong things, which is totally untrue. Lots of things that he came up with, this is why I can't think of them offhand now, because it was quite a long conversation that you had with him. But a lot of things like, did get my echoes up a little bit, and I thought, well, that's not true, and that's not true.
Well, this is why we said at the end that anybody can come through, and if there is anybody that's got an opinion on it, then of course they can come on and they can have their say. That was what Richard went through himself. That was his experience, and you've just heard what Gordon has got to say there that disputes quite a bit of it. But what do you think? Give me a call, okay, and pick up that phone. Let's talk about this some more. 08453 009956. Maybe there's somebody that has had, that's been through this themselves. Did you go through what Richard went through? Is your story similar? Would you completely dispute what Richard has to say? Give me a call this afternoon, 08453 009956. As I said, we're not here to take sides. We're merely here to listen to his story and to listen to any more stories that do come in. It is all about you. So thank you very much for having your say this afternoon. There's a lot of texts that have come through as well. Many people that have got something to say on this. Let's do this one text. Phil, who says, Caroline, a thorny issue which I'm glad that you have brought up. My family are Christians, and I remember as young children hearing my dad and a close Jehovah's Witness friend screaming at each other over a difference of opinion. That is why I will never be involved in them or any other religion. They are all supposed to worship the same figures. So says Phil on the text there. Come on, let's talk about this some more for the next half an hour of the show here on Lunch with Caroline Martin. I can see feelings are running high, and as I said, we're not here to stoke things up. You've heard what Richard had to say. Do you agree with him or do you not? Have you been through the same yourself? Do you dispute what he's had to say? Give me a call. Let's talk some more.